the baby. So this section is targeting more from 2 to 4 years of age. You've begun with the baby, you've started doing all of the things, and then now you are like transitioning. So if you have a child that's in like the 2 to 4 year old range and like they're just starting to talk, they're getting like they're more curious about the world around them. So this is for that. So that it's in this age range that you can start like the early reading instruction that we talked about last week, or I mean the previous session. And then you can begin to do early math. So I just want to kind of like zoom straight into it. I want to start first by saying if you're intimidated by the thought of teaching math, please don't be intimidated. I feel like that's the subject that a lot of people would probably feel like, okay, I can't, I wasn't too good at math in school, so how do I teach my child? Um, but for this age, you are very, very overqualified to teach early math. If you know how to count to 100 and to do basic addition, you are good to go. You can teach early math. So don't let's put the math fear aside. Um, so the first thing with math is it needs to be grounded in reality. Um, you need to start with real life objects. So from when your child is a baby, you realize that literally everything can be counted. We can count eyes, we can count fingers, we can count toes. So just as you're surrounding them with like the early like language, you're talking to them all the time, you can also be counting with them all the time. So as you're dressing them up, you're putting on their diaper, you're like, oh, let me count your fingers, let me count your toes, how many ears do you have, and that sort of thing. And then when they are more mobile and they start moving around, then you can start to count objects in real life. Oh, look, this is 2 bananas. Let me put the 2 bananas here. Let's count them. One, two. Or this is 2 balls. You have 2 balls. Let's count the balls. Okay. Just as like you are surrounding them with the language like of read like just of like just language also incorporates early math talk. So like you're pointing out the fact that there are different objects and we can count them basically. So yes. And we always want to use concrete items. Like we always want to don't just count sort of like in abstraction. Let them actually have something like something physical that they can touch and hold and interact with when you're counting. So we see like um you can see that maybe a little child, even a child that has been trained can count from like one, or they can recite, I wouldn't say count, but they can recite their numbers from let's say 1 to 100. And that's impressive. But they may not necessarily understand what the numbers actually mean. And that is where the teaching or like that's where your focus should be. That they should actually understand what number one means. So I'll break this down, and I'm sorry, I'm about to go a little bit technical, but please just stay with me. So, one of the skills that you're trying to build in early math is called cardinality. So, cardinality is the understanding that the last number that the child says when they're counting. So, um, when you count an object and you say, let's say 1, 2, 3, that the last number three that they said, it actually represents the total number of objects that it's presented to them. And it takes a while for the children to actually kind of grasp it. Like they can kind of um count along with you and recite like, oh, 1, 2, 3. Sometimes they'll even keep on going, even though it's just three objects. You'll keep going to 4, 5, 6, 7, they can recite, but then there's a certain point where the child actually grasps that 1, 2, 3 means three objects, or 1, 2 means two objects, or one means it's just one object that is represented. So that's the skill of cardinality. And then so what I've found to be able to let the child actually grasp that like number two represents two objects, or when I count, it's actually two objects, is to just focus on a few quantities, like a few number quantities at a time. So when you start teaching them, yes, they can recite to the number sequence. That's number 1 to 10 or number 1 to 20. They can recite it. But reciting is very different from actually understanding the fact that number two represents two objects. So what you want to do is just start with one or two number quantities at a time. Just as you in reading, you started with just one, or you start with like one or two or three sounds at a time. The same with the numbers. You focus on teaching the numbers one at a time and always sort of connecting that, okay, if it's number two, we are talking about two objects. We are going to count two things, one, two. And like at some points they'll realize that okay, when I finish counting the two, it means that like the two represents like everything that we just counted. I hope I'm making sense. Um, then the other skill that you want to look out for at this age is called one-to-one correspondence. So that is they need to grasp that it's kind of linked to the first one. Two is two objects. But then when I count the two, like the first number I say corresponds to the first object, and then the second number I said corresponds to the second object. So if I count that this is one and this is two, number one corresponds to this finger, and then number two corresponds to the second finger. So basically what I'm trying to say is the child shouldn't just recite numbers, they need to come to the understanding that if I say two, two represents two objects. That's the basic thing that I'm trying to say right now. And of course, as with everything, it develops by daily repetition, going over it over and over again, going over it over and over again. When we talk about like the number symbols, so I'm switching to the second camera. So this is number seven. Number seven, like if you're a child, this is just like a black shape on a piece of paper. Okay. So the number symbols are actually abstract to a child. So they need to come to the understanding that when I say seven, seven actually corresponds to like seven things. So for example, here we have seven dots. And it's that like um transition that you need to like be watching out for, that they've actually gotten to understand that seven means seven objects. So if there's any, I think if there's any like question at this point, maybe let me address it before I move on. If anybody has any questions, I hope I'm communicating what I want to say clearly. Hello.
Yes,
You
please, I have a question.
okay?
Please, my question is, so with the early maths, yeah, um, first, I want to know that are we going to like enlighten them on as in seven corresponds to this? Is it at once, or first they would just recite the number, then with time we like they get to understand that
Mm,
maybe two means this, or do we introduce it all to them like for example with the alphabet you made a statement like you can show them whether it's big or small, and then the sound. So it's like you're
yeah.
showing, then the sound also follows. With the maths, how do we go about it?
So with the number sequence, that's like counting from one, two, three, reciting the numbers. That's something you can just incorporate as you go along, because like you can have number songs that you can sing. So the child, they still need to know that like you need to go from one to two to three to four to five to six. So that's
Okay.
still important. So you can do that on one hand. Then on
Mhm.
the other hand, you have like a focused time with them where you are counting one number specifically, or you are focusing on just that number specifically. So
Okay.
okay, so let me show you what we use. So I'm switching to the second camera. Is if it's hard to see, you can let me know. Um, okay, so we have this binder that we use, and I'll also show a video like soon of like how we do early math. So maybe that would make it a bit more clear. But what we do is we start with number zero. It's very important to teach the number zero as well. So um so what we've been doing is just these 3 pages. So that's zero, one, and then two. And then so every time that we come to this binder, she's counting just one. So she can see visually that, sorry, my hands are out of the way. She can see visually that this is one counter. And then she puts it there. Then we go to number two. We emphasize on the fingers, counting on the fingers, the number symbol, because they need to sort of connect that this number symbol corresponds to one, two. Okay, because this is just abstract. This is just, we don't know what this means. So it's your job to sort of like give this thing a meaning. So this thing means we are talking about two items. Okay. Then same with number three. One, two, three. So that's how we do it. So just taking three numbers, and then what you can do is you can connect it with like in real life. So it means that you're only focusing if you have to count something. Of course, if the thing is more than three, that's fine. But if let's say you are intentionally trying to draw their attention to um, counting, then you only focus on three, keep the number of things that you're counting just under three, just so that they're not overwhelmed. But you still need more than one, number, because the thing is with children, if you don't bring a differentiation between the things, they will just use one, they will say one thing to cover everything else. Like if you don't show them, let's say like two or three different sounds in the beginning, and you only show them, let's say the ah card, they'll see every letter and say it's ah. Do you understand? But you have to let them know that okay, there's a difference between this symbol and this symbol and this symbol. Okay.
Okay.
So we have like other activities in Binder. So I'm not focusing on any other number apart from, let's say, three. So we use this as a game. It's we'll show the video, so let me not take too much time. So if we're counting, we are only counting two ducks or three ducks, and then we are done. Until I can see that she has understood that two refers to one and two. I hope I'm making some sense.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. Is there any other question? So as they keep on like grasping the numbers, then you can keep on moving on to higher numbers and higher numbers and higher numbers. Yeah. So any more questions?
Hi, Chucky.
Hi.
So at what point do we teach them how to spell the numbers? So let's see, how would they know how to spell number one? So zero,
Like
O N
O
E.
N N E.
Yeah, do we mix it
No,
or
at
we
this
just
okay, so at this age, we are not spelling at all. Like I don't think it's very necessary. And to be honest, I don't think it's necessary. Actually, one thing I realized I forgot to mention in the reading session was that we don't really pair, or it's not necessary to pair reading and writing instruction at the same time, especially for this age group. I'll address it as we go along further. But then what happens is your child's skill level in the two areas may be very different. So if you pair the two things together, like that, because they're working so hard at trying to write, they become frustrated with the material. Meanwhile, they could have just learned the sounds or just learned the letters. Like, so instead of writing with them, what we do is we use we let them okay, so we let them represent the numbers with cards. So if let's say you're doing early addition and they don't know how to write yet, they can still figure out that 8 plus 1 equals 9. I hope everybody can see without having to write or without having to spell. Like they can grasp that knowledge. Writing and spelling is a very different skill sort of altogether. And it develops differently in children. So if you tie the two things together, they are working so hard at trying to learn to like learn the symbols, working so hard at writing. And then sometimes it just creates this like frustration because it's two different skills that they're actually working on at the same time. So the child can learn spelling a little bit earlier. Like this is the very early stages. So you don't have to do everything at once. It's completely unnecessary to do everything at once. What you want to do is lay a solid foundation. Then you can start building on, just like the way we do with normal buildings. You don't start, you know, putting your rooms in the foundation. No, you start with the foundation. Make sure that the foundation is very solid. Then from there, you can build on, you can build on. And okay, like I said, we'll talk about it, about like the different how do I say it? Should I say rates or like how your child's development might be like accelerated in one area but slow in another area. It doesn't mean that it's not a bad thing. It's actually very common in children. So we'll talk about that a bit later on. Yeah.
Okay,
So
thanks.
yeah, any other questions, please? And then we can keep going. Okay, so should I just keep going?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, okay. All right. So then the other thing with teaching math, like math in general, is you always want to teach with the principle of concrete to pictorial to abstract. So concrete to pictorial to abstract. So what this means is in the concrete stage, whenever you're presenting any new material, even like this can carry on from right up to when they are much, much older and they're learning math. You always want to give them something to handle, to feel, to touch. So these are called manipulatives. You always want to start with something concrete that they can actually hold. And then they can, so when you say, okay, this is one, they can like they can see it, they can visualize that this is actually one or this is two. So in the math world, they call these things manipulatives. You can sort of like invest in sort of in these things if you know that like this is something that you're going to be doing. So these are just counters. And then we also have some bears. You can use common things that you find around your house. You know, we used to use like the bottle caps when we were young, but yes, you can use them as counters. But basically, every time you're trying to present a concept, it should start with something concrete, something that they are holding, something that they are feeling. So if we are saying we are counting two, then let's put two things down so that we can see that it's two. If we say we are counting three, let's add one. You can also use blocks, you can use Legos, just anything that they can manipulate. Obviously, it should be something that is not a choking hazard to the child. So we have to keep that in mind. And so we always start with manipulatives. You can use bowls, you can use spoons, you can use buttons, you can use crackers, biscuits. The only caveat with food items is you don't want to kind of like associate learning time with eating. So you just want to be careful with that. But you can use common things around the house. Like I'm saying, when you start to actually tune your mind to it, you realize that there's math all around us because you can count literally everything. And so that is the foundation for early math. Like it's grounded in real life, and we're always trying to like use something to represent the numbers. Okay. This back. So that's when, okay, we are seeing number 7, but then now 7 has been represented as dots on a paper. Like the pictorial stage is sort of moving the concrete things onto a paper. So now we can count on the paper. Like, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we can even match when we are counting, right? We can match the concrete to the abstract or to the pictorial. And the pictorial stage, you can have like butterflies, like maybe drawn on a piece of paper, or like you're just representing the number quantities with a picture of some kind. And and so that will help the child to connect that, oh, okay, it's not just concrete, like we are seeing the things, but also I can also count things when they are represented on a page. Okay. Then we go to the abstract. The abstract is usually when you are trying to connect that the number symbols sort of correspond with the concrete things and then the abstract pictures. So if I count if I have 7 counters and 7 dots and 7 fingers, they all represent 7. This is 7, this is 7, these dots are 7, this is also 7. I hope I hope you can follow along what I'm saying. So pictorial is I need to be able to recognize the number quantity like represented as a picture, like in a picture form. But and then the abstract is I know that this number here is 7. So that, for example, when you go to do addition, okay, when you start, like usually you're not doing addition at this stage, but what it means practically is that when you go to do addition, if I tell the child 1 plus 2, for example, or let me just use whatever I can find. So if I tell the child 4 plus 2, once you've gone through this stage, they can actually understand that 4 here means I need to put 4 things down. So that's 4. And then 2 here means I need to put 2 things down. And then when I count them all together, then I will get 6. Okay, so we have sort of like linked the concrete items to the pictorial to the abstract. Because once they start to understand the abstract, then they like it's at that point that you realize that they know that 4 means 4 items. And you have to keep working on it until you see that your child has developed that understanding. Otherwise, like I'm saying, if you don't build a concrete or a solid foundation in these things, they will just struggle with math later on in life. And yeah. So that's concrete, pictorial, abstract. Always trying to like make it a real life thing before we try to connect it with the symbols. Okay. Um, I hope you're following along because I'm about to drop another like technical thing. I hope everybody's okay.
Yes.
Yes. So I think that this next thing I'm about to talk about is like the trick, the trick for your child to actually get good at math. And this skill will develop over time. It's not going to necessarily be developed like right when you start. In the beginning, you are just trying to work on understanding the number quantities, really understanding them. Not that we are just reciting the numbers, but we can actually understand what they mean. So it's called subitizing. I hope I'm pronouncing it well. So subitizing is the skill of being able to recognize a number quantity without needing to count, the numbers one after the other. So I'm going to play a little subitizing game with you guys, if you're ready. And I'm going to show you some cards. And I just want you to tell me if you can figure out what number it is without counting. Okay. So if you're ready, let me know. And then we can begin. Are you guys ready?
I guess.
Okay. So I'm going to show you the card quite quickly. And then you let me know if you can know what number it is, or you can say the number without counting. Okay. All right. So I'm going to flash the first card.
3.
Sorry,
3.
3. Okay, great. Let's see. Let me give you a hard one. Did you see it?
9.
9.
9. Okay, great. Good. People are good at math. How about this one?
8.
7.
Oh, 7.
Somebody said 7, somebody said 8. Okay. How about this?
7.
7.
7. Good. All right. Last one.
7.
7.
Mhm.
Okay, good. So this is the skill of subitizing. You can see the number quantity and you just kind of know that this is 3. You don't have to count that it's 3. I think what slows a lot of children down is, especially if they've not developed this skill and they get to addition, then every time that there's an equation presented, they have to count, use their fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and count before they know what the answer is. But once the child has developed this skill of they can recognize number quantities sort of on sight, then it makes addition and every other like thing that you're building on much, much easier. So once they have learned the number quantities, they know like they can, if you say, give me 10 things, they can actually count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and give you 10 things. Then at that point, you want to try getting them to recognize the number quantities. And that's why I have these cards here with the numbers sort of represented in different ways. So they learn how to interpret tallies, that this is a group of 5, 5, and then 4 more, and that makes 9. And then I'll talk about the tens frame next. I've mentioned it a lot. But the tens frame is a good tool to teach subitizing because okay, so should we just talk about it? So the way the tens frame is built is a frame of 10 boxes. And let me bring out the picture. So it's 10 boxes, and then it has a dark line in the middle. So the first thing your child would like learn is that this half of the frame is 5 boxes. This other half is 5 boxes. So if all the counters on the frame are filled, let's say, if all the counters on this half are filled, we don't need to count. We already know that it's 5. If all the counters on the second half are filled, we don't need to count. We know that it's 5. And 5 plus 5 equals 10. But then what we do is we also let the child sort of learn where the number quantity sort of sits on the frame. So 5 and 1 more is 6. 5 and 2 more is 7. 5 and 3 more is 8. 5 and 4 more is 9. 5 and 5 more is 10. And why this is a very good tool is that when you have a pile of dots, like the way I showed you guys, if you just have a pile of dots and I just say, okay, how many is this? Maybe you can have a few strategies for knowing how to figure it out. But I think what most people will do is they will try and break up the quantity in a way so that it's more manageable for them to figure it out. What the tens frame does is it gives the child a grid to be able to arrange the numbers in a way that makes sense. So it's easier, much easier for you to see that this is 5 as opposed to if you just cut it like that. Okay. And just by the way it's designed, if let's say we have 6 counters on the frame, first of all, we know that 5, we can build a couple of equations just by looking at this. That 5 plus 1 equals 6. That 10 minus 4, because 4 boxes are empty, equals 6. And that 6 plus 4 equals 10. So just by learning that this quantity here is 6 because 5 plus 1 is 6, you can build, you can also know about 3 different equations just from this one frame. And so it's like a very good tool for teaching beginning math, and or when, especially when you get to sort of like the addition, they start to add numbers together. It's also a great tool for supervising because then they start grouping the numbers together instead of counting them one after the other. All right, so all right, that's the skill of supervising. And when you look at like the number cards that I showed you, you know, like how you look at the number 5 on a dice, and you don't really have to count. Because you've seen that like there's 2 here and there's 2 here over and over and over again, you know that it's 5 without counting. So we always want to sort of like represent the numbers in different ways so that they know that like they can just sort of visualize it, see it, and then know what the quantity is. But that's a skill that develops with time as your child grows more towards the end of like 3, 4, thereabouts. They can start to like recognize the patterns in the numbers. Yeah. So that's why you see that we have cards that represent numbers with dots. We have number like the number symbol, and then we have it on the tens frame. And one thing is you can use these tens frame cards and these number cards to play games to help like the child memorize the quantities. So when they start, of course, when they start out first learning, they'll need to count. They'll use their fingers or they'll use counters, which is very fine and very necessary. But as they grow, you want to sort of encourage the skill of try and see whether you can figure out how many counters are there without counting. Or can you like sorry, like just to encourage them to always try and recognize the number without needing to count. And this not needing to count is what makes math like faster and I think more enjoyable for the child. Because if every time you see 2 plus 2, you have to count on your finger or to figure it out, the math becomes very slow. So when other children have finished their equations and you are still working, it just sort of brings down your spirits that maybe you don't understand something. But I truly believe that this is the intermediate step that maybe people don't focus too much on. And to be able to let them recognize the quantities on site without needing to count. And that really helps. And as I was saying with math, so let me kind of put everything together in like a step-by-step guide. And the first thing is you want to surround them with like early math language. Talk to them about numbers, count with them in real life, point out numbers to them everywhere that you are. And then the second thing is focus on one or two quantities at a time and teach till they understand that the symbol corresponds with the number or the objects correspond with the number. Then so you can use your counters and then the pictures as well. Then step 3 is after the child has sort of demonstrated that they truly understand the quantities, then you can start working on the skill of letting them um letting them recognize the number quantities without needing to count. So that's the supervising step. Then you also want to teach them how to count up to, well, in at this stage, you could do 100, but around 30 should be fine. Because what happens is when they start counting the teen numbers, it can be a bit confusing. Um, in other languages, like for example in Chinese, the word for number 11, it translates to 10 and 1. Okay, so like the word itself helps you to understand what the quantity is because 10 and 1 is 11. 10 and 1, so 10 plus 1 makes 11. But in English, we have different words for the teens. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And if you don't interpret the like what that means, you're not going to really know because the word itself doesn't give you a clue as to what the quantity is. When you after the T numbers, when you count, when you say 21, 22, 23, like the word itself gives you a clue as to what the quantity is. So what I've seen one math curriculum do is that they call 10 a T. So 110 is 1T, and then 20 is 2Ts, and then 30 is 3Ts. So basically, cueing the child to know that 30 actually means 3 tens. So 110, 2 tens, and then 3 tens. And then what they do with the teen numbers is they say, let's say 11 is 1T1. So 1T and 1. And then 12 is 1T2. So that's 10 and 2. Just sort of to help the child understand what the actual quantity is. So the teen numbers can be a bit tricky. But after you move past the teen numbers, then the sequence becomes a bit more repetitive in a way that the child can understand. Like 31, 32, 41, 42. It kind of follows the same. But then the break is in the teen numbers. So you also want to slow down and help the child understand that section. Okay. So then I was also saying that one thing, so after your child has understood supertizing and you've learned your number sequence, then you can begin addition. And with the addition, um, you really want to take your time with addition because addition is like the foundation of all of the other mathematical operations. So, okay, this is a this is a chart of the addition facts that your child needs to learn. I haven't actually counted them, but your child needs to master this. So that's as they are growing, as they're developing, they need to master all of the combinations of addition facts. Because what if they struggle? What I've noticed is that if your child struggles with addition is not like snappy at their fingertips, then other things like other operations like subtraction, multiplication, division will become unnecessarily difficult. So you need to slow down and make sure that they have mastered this. And it's color coded in a way that you can teach. So I feel like when we're in school, we will probably just memorize like 1 + 1, 2 + 2, 3 + 3. We'll just memorize it along the columns this way. But then we weren't really given any strategy so that if, let's say, for one reason or another, your memory fails and you don't remember what 5 + 4 is one day, then it's kind of like you're stuck. You don't have any strategy to work yourself out of that equation. But what you can actually um do is you can teach the facts in like you see how they've been color coded. You group them and teach them according to the strategy that you can use to figure it out. So if I start with down here, that is adding nines. So 9 + 3, 9 + 4, 9 + 5, 9 + 6, 9 + 7, 9 + 8, 9 + 9. And then it's sort of like the same way when you flip it. If it's 8 + 9 versus 9 + 8, it's the same thing. So that's another thing you need to teach, that in addition, it doesn't matter the order of the numbers, the answer will still be the same. So, for example, if you have 9 + 8, and I remember growing up, I always used to be tripped up by the nines when I had to add nines. But a simple strategy that we have learned is 9 always wants to become a 10. So what would 9 do? 9 will vacuum up one number, will vacuum up one from the other number to become a 10. So then you can add 10 plus whatever number is left. And it's always easier to add 10 and something else versus, let's say, 9 and something else. So 9 + 8 is 17. So with all of these numbers, you can use a trick, like a strategy to remember what it is. Or the same for 8. 8 wants to become a 10. But 8 will always vacuum up 2 from the other number and then become a 10. Then you add whatever is left, which is why the 10's frame is also helpful, because it helps the child to be able to organize numbers as 10 and something or 5 and something, which is always easier than if it's just like started in a way. Okay, so those are the addition facts. And then there's a similar chart like this for subtraction as well. And in the beginning, I feel like if you get your child to the point of they have mastered addition, they have mastered subtraction, it's at their fingertips, you are kind of good to go at the early stages. That's where like your focus should be. So mastering addition will probably be more from like 4 to 6 years of age, where like you are used. So like I was saying, it doesn't have to be just every day we stand up 1 + 1, 2 + 2. No, you can use games, you can make it fun. And so, for example, um this is one game that we play at home. It's called Race to 10. And this helps to teach adding +1 and +2. So what we do is we'll have a coin, you flip the coin, and then if it's heads, you add 1. And then if it's tails, you get to add 2 numbers. So, or 2 counters. So as we are adding, we are always either saying or writing it down that 1 + 2 = 3. And then the game progresses until you have filled the board completely. Then another game that we play is called climb to the top. And this helps when you're adding plus threes and plus fours. So we usually have like a deck of cards, number cards that we use. You put the two cards down and then you add the quantities together. The answer that you get. So usually we are using higher numbers than ones and twos though. So that will give you either 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. And then you keep on adding your counters so the first person reaches the top. And when my first daughter was very young and we were just like beginning to learn to recognize numbers. So it takes a while for them to like recognize the symbols, number one, number two, number three, and so on and so forth. We would play this game as number bingo. So we have a deck of cards and then we'll place it face down. You flip over the card if it's number one and you have, okay, this is a different board. But if you have number one on your board, then you cover it. You cover it with the counter. So the first person to get like either a diagonal, like four in a row, will shout bingo. And she really, really loved this. Really loved this game a lot. So yeah. So those are some things that you can do to make it fun, to make it interesting. Um, Math is very easy to incorporate games into. So don't like let the trauma of mental back in the day like hinder you. Let the fear of math kind of like stop you from making it fun. It can be very fun because once they are using like these are bears, counting bears, once they're using manipulatives and other things and they're playing games. Another game we used to play was number jump. This So we have these numbers in large print. We like put them all over the floor, and then I'll just call out a number, and then she has to run and find the number and sort of like jump on it. Of course, the caution here is if you get these, just be careful. The surface is slippery, so you must always jump in front of the number instead. Okay? So yeah, use games, make it fun, and make sure that like your child has like a really solid math foundation before you move on to anything else. Do you guys have any questions or anything else that we would like to see? Any questions, please? Anybody?
I don't have a question. I just want, well, it's still a question. Let me ask anyway.
Okay.
Are all your materials DIY or did you buy them like that? Did you get them done for you? You prepare them yourself?
Yeah, so all my materials are they are DIY. I was sharing on the group that I have a background in graphic design, so like when we
Oh,
started doing
okay.
school, one of the things that I don't know, I saw a way to sort of help our school was to design some of these things. So the game
Mm-hmm.
boards, the cards, everything you see here was made and produced by myself. And
Okay.
it's all based
Amazing.
off it's all based off of like the curriculum, what we've been learning. But sometimes I would just see like the games. So the curriculum will provide you with a game board, but it's just a simple black and white image.
Okay,
And
so you
then
just
like the
add some
graphic designer
color.
yeah, in me is just like, okay, let me just dress this up and make it much nicer, yeah.
Okay.
And so I was saying that I plan to make these available to anybody who would want to use them in your school. I can make and produce the cards. They are printed usually on photo paper, then I laminate and then cut.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're interested in any of them, um, I can make them available for you.
Right. Thank you so
Especially
much.
the learning binder, if you're interested in getting one for your kid.
Okay.
So I'll put details of all of that in the group. But I
Okay.
think let me just show before we run, let me just show some of the math curriculum that we have used in the past. So this is what we are using currently. So usually I would get um the PDFs and then print them at home. So that's why it looks a bit, you know. So this is
Okay.
Math with Confidence. I really like this program because it incorporates a whole lot of games. We've used the same publisher since my child was like a toddler. So this is preschool math at home. And
Okay.
if you simple activities, real life activities, you can incorporate games, lots of things. And the publisher of this curriculum also has their own website where they sort of share math help, so how to teach math
Mm-hmm.
in the early ages. And then they have a kindergarten program, and this is the first grade program. So this is what we are using with my first right now. And then
Okay.
we've taken a break from this, and now we are using this addition facts that stick. It's also from the same publisher, but it's a program to just like really drill in, not drill, but like really let your child be comfortable with the addition facts.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I was saying, they give you the game boards. This was the climb to the top, for example. But then I thought like the graphic
Oh,
designer in me will not sit still
okay.
as play like this. So I just like,
Oh,
okay,
you really,
make
you're
this,
doing amazing.
let me make this
Because
interesting.
the materials actually is part of the job. If the material is not
Yeah,
good
it's
enough,
not,
I
yes,
mean, it will be
it's not
boring and
pleasant to be
then
boring. Yes,
exactly.
exactly. Exactly. So that's addition facts. And then we also use this is another program called Singapore Math. Um it's they are very heavy on like the concrete pictorial abstract. So you see a lot of like pictures of how to
Mm-hmm.
count, like counting different things. So we kind of use this as a supplement because this is the kindergarten program, which we've already passed kindergarten, but it's good to always sort of give your child different levels of teaching. Sometimes, especially with reading, they may be working on something. Okay, so we're reading it with math. So you always want to kind of like stagger to three levels. Give them something easy to do. Let it be below
Okay.
their level. If they've passed it, let them still do it because they are able to do it. It makes it fun. It makes it engaging. Like it's not difficult. It's
Mm-hmm.
not always that math has to be difficult or reading has to be difficult. If you give them stuff at an easy level, it keeps the enjoyment of the program going.
Okay.
And then you give them stuff that is at their level. So that's where we're working on. It's a bit hard. It's a little difficult, but we can understand we're working at that level. Um, but then also especially with reading, you also want to give them stuff that is slightly above their level so that they're always sort of kind of reaching for the next the next
Mm-hmm.
level. Like they're not only staying at one level. So we use this sort of like as an easy, like our easy level. And then
Right.
this is where we actually are right now. But like I
Okay.
said, we are taking a break from this because they are moving on to subtraction, and I'm not ready to for us to do subtraction yet. I would like us to stay and really master the addition fact. So now we are
Addition.
doing
Okay.
this. Yeah. Then we'll come back to
Mm.
this. Yeah. Um,
Thank you.
this is another program, and they have their own sort of like system. They use a specific kind of block to teach addition. And what they do is with their program, you will master like addition and subtraction. Every level is like a different operation. So this level is addition and subtraction. So that's what you are doing all throughout until you have mastered it. And So we kind of we started using this one, but then I prefer this because it just incorporates a lot more games and other things. Yeah. Um, okay. Let me see what else I had to show. All right, we did have okay. And then this is like so with math, like when you're counting, you get to a point where you also start to use money. So we have this like play money that we use when we are playing store. You get to like count out the money and all of those things. So as a child grows, like let your creativity kind of like flow through in making the lessons fun and engaging. And yeah, you have a question. Oh, please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to know that at this age, are they able to, sometimes kids are curious
Mm-hmm.
and they want to maybe tear up. I don't know if I'm making sense, but sometimes
Yeah.
they're like, if I tear this, let me see how it be. So do you
Yes.
find them tearing some of the cards or chewing, like any
Oh, yes.
naughty behavior or curious
Yes.
behavior? Let me
Yes.
put it that
Yes.
way.
I
Do you
mean,
do you have that? Is that a hazard?
yes, it is. To be honest, like when we started out, I would just print on normal A4 paper and then laminate. I didn't really have that problem so much with my firstborn, but my second born is the one who like really rips up things. Like she would just take it. She knows where like the seam is. She would just take it apart. So then I started printing on like photo paper to make it a little bit steady. Even then, she will still get into it. Like she still manages to spoil them. But it's part of it, you know. It's part of it. So we just do what we can. We just do what we can. So let me play the videos and then I'll come back and then we'll just talk about so what's left is talking about writing and then also just general learning. And then when your child is like from 4 to 6, kind of some of the things you want to be thinking about. And that will just round out this section for me. I want to do a third session, which will talk mainly about sort of putting managing the household plus the homeschooling. Because what you realize is all of a sudden you're like, okay, we have to homeschool. Then I also have to cook food. I also have to go to the markets. I also have to clean the house. The kids are always home, so the house is always a mess. I have to stay on top of the laundry. Like there are all of these other things that kind of come together when you're homeschooling. So I want to do just a third and final session that's just covering that. So okay, so let me play the videos and then um we'll just round out this section with writing and then general learning and when your child is from 4 to 6. Okay. Um,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so show me your 0 fingers. Let me see 0 fingers. Yeah, no fingers are up, right? So you see that 0. 0. Now show me your 1 finger.
Okay.
One finger. And 1 red counter. You can take it off. Let's count it. 1. And let's put it back. 1. Good job. That's number 1.
Yeah.
Okay, let's show me 2 fingers now. 2. 2 fingers.
Toy.
Let me see the fingers.
Look at the back.
Yes. How many are there?
Two.
It's 2. Let's see if I can. 1, 2. Now please put them back on. Start from this one. 1.
Look. Fix it.
Okay. Let me help. You put 1
1,
and
2.
2. And let's count them. Let's count them. 1.
Ow.
And the next one, 2.
2.
Show me 3 fingers.
2.
3. 1, 2, 3.
Done.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Now let's put it back. 1,
2.
2,
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
3.
3. Okay. So let's go to the duckies. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's mother duck, Kelly.
This looks like a meadow.
Wow.
So many trees.
Kelly, how many ducks are going to go on? 1 duck. Okay.
The
So
middle.
look, 1 ducky is going to swim. Okay, just 1.
And this the middle.
Yeah, I guess so. So let's sing. One little duck went swimming one day over the hills and far away. And mother duck said, "Wow, wow, wow, wow." And then the one little duck came back. Okay, now Kelly, and then we add another duck. So we have 2 duckies. 2 duckies are going to swim. Let's count them, Kelly. 1, 2. Let's put another. Where should mother duck be? Down here? Okay, so let the duckies swim. Ready? Go.
Go.
2 little ducks went swimming one day over the hills and far
10
away.
ducks.
Mother duck said, "Quack, quack, 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 quack." And then the 2 little ducks came back.
It's a duck. Yeah.
So Kelly, your friend is very hungry.
Yeah.
So he says he wants
1.
one strawberry. Can you please give him 1 strawberry?
No.
1 strawberry for his plate.
No. No.
Why?
Why? He's hungry. No.
1 strawberry for him.
No.
Why? You take it. Take it for him.
And look, a heart.
Yeah. So you take 1 strawberry for him. 1 strawberry. Yay!
Hearts.
Good job.
Heart,
Now he
Mama.
has 1 strawberry. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice heart.
Okay.
Okay, Kelly. Now he says he wants
1,
2
2.
strawberries. Can you please take 2 strawberries?
No. Look off.
2 strawberries for him, please. Carol, let Kelly do it, okay? Kelly, take 2 strawberries.
Ouch. He's hungry.
He's hungry.
Yeah.
So did you give him 2? There's 3 strawberries, Kelly. Look, 1, 2, 3.
What's my pet?
But he only wants 2, so let's take 1 out. So now he has 2 strawberries.
I gave him 2.
Okay, Kelly. Now let's just count number 1. Let's count number 1 on our tens frame, okay? So we can take these ones
I
off.
want to.
Put in.
She's hungry. He's full now.
Let's put 1 on the tens frame. Only 1.
Okay.
Put 1.
Number 1.
Just 1.
Now look, hearts.
1 counter
Look,
here.
hearts. Hearts, Mama.
Put 1 here. Start from
Hearts.
here.
I bended them over.
Nice. 1. That's 1. Do 4. 4. Let's do 5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oopsie.
Ladies,
Hi.
let's start with our painting for today, okay?
Okay.
What's the name of this painting? Do you remember?
No.
It's called Irises.
No.
Say irises.
So
And
can you
who
say that again?
And who painted this one?
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh, right?
And
So what do you see? What do you see in the painting?
I see irises.
And what's this called?
Okay.
A vase. Okay, Kelly, do you see lots of blue? Color blue, Kelly?
Yeah. It's like a blue pencil.
Lots and lots of blue, right? Okay, so let me put here. Kelly, come let's read, and then Kara, you do your worksheet from yesterday. Will you keep me in the zoo? I want to stay in here with you.
Ew.
We do not want you in the zoo.
Yeah.
Out you go. Out with you.
I see.
And look at this. What do you see?
And look at this.
Green spots.
But just like this.
Yeah, just like that. Yeah, green spots.
Yeah.
As green can be.
Yeah.
One thing more. I take my spots and make them 4. Let's count. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
4
Nice.
spots.
Eh.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's take one Let me see. What do you have? Which one do you have? Take one and kind of fix it. Here. That's it.
Go.
Look close here.
Yeah.
Now let's look at our colors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Colors. Let's look. Okay, look at the crescent. Come see the crescent.
I could find it. The moon.
That's right.
I could find the crescents.
There's a crescent.
Like a moon.
Like a moon.
Yeah.
This is called an almond.
Almond.
That's like the shape of your eye.
Mm-hmm.
Almond.
I can see your almond eye. Purple. Color this is white. Yours is purple color. Yours is purple.
So talking about writing, as I mentioned before, so the main 3 things that we are focusing on at this stage: reading, math, and writing. Uh, when we talk about writing, it's a good place to bring up this concept, which is it's called asynchronous. I hope I'm saying it right. Asynchronous development, which is that a child's growth or development in different areas, they don't always progress at the same time. So, for example, you could start the reading, your child could just pick up reading, and they could be reading at like a level that is far above their age, but then maybe they're still behind in writing or they're still behind in math. Or you could start math, child will just fly through math and then be lagging in reading or be lagging in quotes in writing. And and that's normal. Like children don't progress in the different areas at the same time. That's completely normal. So if your child, and remember that this is still the early stages, especially with writing, it takes a lot for them, for their little fingers to sort of develop their hand muscles to be able to hold the pencil. Even sometimes holding the pencil for a long time, it strains their hand because their hand muscles are like not yet developed. That's something that sometimes we don't really think about too much. So with writing, usually we don't, like I'm saying, we don't tie writing and reading instruction. We don't tie writing and math instruction. So at this stage, we're not really using worksheets so much, or we're not like really forcing the child like you have to write letter 1, or number 1, or you have to write it down, you have to write down the answer. They can know it, and then you can use the cards to be able to help them, so they can use the cards to represent the number. The knowledge of the thing is more important than them necessarily being able to write it down. But then you also use certain activities to help them, first of all, develop the hand muscles. And those are like what they call the fine motor activities. That is, they are manipulating things with their hands, things that require them to be a bit steady, a bit focused. So such things like learning to use scissors, and you can teach them like these little blocks. You can teach them how to put like a thread through. If you have small beads, that if the child is not one that's like puts things in their mouth a lot, you can see whether you can use actual smaller beads that they can sort of like, for you as an adult, you've done it so many times, you don't really think about it. But as for a young child, um it takes them a while to be able to develop the coordination to know that, okay, I've got to put this string straight through the hole. And then also like working with Play-Doh is also very beneficial, like to help strengthen their hand muscles because they're pushing, they're pulling, they're stretching. And so there are lots and lots of fine motor activities that you can do in the beginning. That is like what we call pre-writing. But also, you can also just give them crayons, color pencils. If your child, like my second born, will always put markers in her mouth, so don't give her markers. So even crayons and color pencils, she put them in her mouth, but she really loves to write. So, or to color and to scribble. In the beginning, they'll be scribbling. They'll just put things like, do that. And one thing you want to do in the beginning stages is correct their pencil grip. So when they take a pencil, usually they'll want to hold it like this, hold it like it's a club or it's a hammer. And you always want to say, no, let's hold it the right way. I know there are also these like pencil grip things that you can sort of put on the pencil and then have the child hold that instead of like holding it like that. Right? You have to always correct them so that they're always holding the pencil or the crayon, whatever it is, in the right way. So correct grip. Then the second thing is you want to start training them to learn how to do counterclockwise circles. Counterclockwise circles, because when you start writing the letters, the A does not go this way. The A is counterclockwise, and the D is counterclockwise, the C is counterclockwise, the G. So there are all of these letters, so many letters that require that motion of going counterclockwise. Usually, naturally, they'll want to go the other way, you know. And then as you teach writing, you may realize that maybe your child, there are certain points where you realize that maybe your child has, you know, maybe some of these issues like dyslexia or dysgraphia. It's still early, too early, in like some like at this age to call is that maybe it's dyslexia or it's dysgraphia. But if you notice some of those things, then you can start to look for ways to intervene. But it's very normal for children, even up to the age of 7 years old, to write the letters in a reversed manner. Like my firstborn does that a lot. If it's like, for example, six, she will write the six in a different, like, instead of going counterclockwise, she goes clockwise and then she writes the six. But that's normal up to about like age 7. So you may encounter some of these things. They're all perfectly normal when it comes to writing, unless there's a true problem, and then you can start to think about intervention. So the takeaway is we are not really pushing the child because they need to develop hand muscles in order to be able to write well. But then we are also giving the child small, small activities that will develop their hand muscles. We're always correcting their pencil grip, making sure that they are writing, like holding the pencil well, and then start training them to make like counterclockwise circles. Then from there, you teach them how to pull the strokes. Um, with early learning, you also always want to like break up if you want to teach something big, break it up into like smaller manageable chunks for the child. So with writing, that is, we need to learn how to form the strokes, all the strokes that make up the formation of most of the letters. If I can just get a pen and a pencil really quickly. Okay, sorry, I think you can see. Oh, this camera is off. Okay. So I'll just use and the strokes. Oh, I took that one out. Okay, so the basic strokes are mainly you're forming a circle, you're pulling a tall line, you're pulling a short line, and then you're learning how to do the slant. So you're slanting to the left and slanting to the right. So you can break that down for them so they practice how to just form those lines and those strokes, just how to pull the line. Usually they'll end up like pulling it too long or, all of those things that children do. But everything is like little bits of practice, going over it, just a few minutes a day, a few minutes a day, keep on going over it. Okay. And then also fine motor activities are very important. All right. Then to sort of round out this early learning phase, we also incorporate like general learning activities. So that's when you're like learning rhymes and poems and children's songs. All of these things are great also for vocabulary. And also, we're learning about animals, we're learning our colors, shapes. So that's like this what we kind of focus on in this second binder that we have. So we are learning how to um so we're recognizing colors, basically colors, then shapes, um, and then we're learning the names of like fruits and vegetables, um, animals, and then we're learning like poems, rhymes, songs. Is also we also have like a bigger flashcard set, which is lots of fruits, veggies, um, and then animals. And I really like flashcards, like in the early ages, because it's just one like piece of information that's being presented at a time. So your child, like, they'll get to a point where they can use the book, right? So let me pull up the animals page. So for example, when you use a flashcard, it's just one piece of information. This is a duck. We are focusing on the duck and nothing else. But then when you start to use the binder, what they're doing is now they're starting to differentiate. Like if you start with a binder, sometimes it can be too much information at once because now there's a sheep, there's a cow, there's a cat. So it's like, which one are we actually focusing on right now? So the flashcards are really great for that's why you see us, we have like a ton of flashcards because it's just one piece of information at a time. But then the binder is also helpful because they also need to learn to discriminate between two different or three different things. So now they need to see that the sheep is different from the cow, is different from the cat, is different from the dog. So the binder is also important. But then the flashcards are really great to start because it doesn't overwhelm them. Um, and you just present one piece of information at a time. Okay. And then you can also look for things like this. So this is like our preschool, is a preschool curriculum that we kind of use to supplement what all the stuff that we're doing at the preschool age. What's good about it is that it includes a lot of like more general learning activities. Because once your child is home, you may not really be thinking too much about things like PE and moving their bodies and other things. But those are things that are also important. So what this does is it's mainly activities based around a book that we have. So a lot of our books came from this um this curriculum. And so for example, um with one book it says you should create a drum from an oatmeal container, have the child drum with both fingers, open hands and individual fingers and thumbs. And then so they have like different topics sort of. So for gross motor, you need to so you use a drum and other instruments to create a marching band with siblings or other children, and then lift knees high and march for strength and coordination and balance. So something like this is good just to give you other ideas of how to just round out everything. We are learning our shapes, we're learning our colors, but also we are moving, we're jumping. It also gives you a ton of extra ideas that you can incorporate, like baking with a child, or um just things like this, or manuals like this are good just to round out everything that you're doing. Just things that fall under like the general learning category. Okay. So that's that for like the 2 to 4 age group. Now I'll talk about like from 4 to 6, where like your child has mastered these things and they know their shapes, they know their colors. They're probably reading simple 2 to 3 words or four letter 2 to 3 letter words or 4 letter words. You've done like the beginning foundational things. I really believe that this 4 to 6 age, you see that now they are really budding with curiosity. They want to find out about the world around them. But it's also a very good time to work on the fundamentals. Like I said, with reading, you can begin to use a phonics. So so with reading, you can begin to use a phonics curriculum. Um, depending on how their reading goes, you could start the phonics curriculum much earlier. Um, so for us, how things progressed with reading was we started with 2 letter blends, then we moved to 3 letter blends, then sorry. So this whole book was full of 2 letter, 3 letter. Then we started to do a bit of combinations and then 4 letter blends. Then um so once that is math, and what we did was, like I'm saying, this is a good time to really drill the fundamentals. Like there's at this stage, there's no reason to rush. If your child has not gotten something, just stay there until the child gets it. So what we did was when we got to the 4 letter blend section, we went over the whole 4 letter blend section again. And after we did that, all of a sudden she was really, really fluent. And then her reading level just kind of like shot up. So you can begin to use a phonics curriculum. We're running out of time once again. This will be the last. Let me just end it. So the phonics curriculum with math, like I showed you, you can begin to also use a curriculum so that it guides you on what to do, how to move forward. You look for a curriculum that will incorporate activities and games and things that will make it fun. And then with writing, if your child is ready, you can begin a writing curriculum. And at this age, they're also very, very curious. So you can begin to do science very gently. The way we are doing science is with this book. And it's surprisingly very detailed for kindergarten or for preschool, they say. But we're learning about plants, the solar system, um, animals, the human body, and all of those things. And we are not doing this in like a formal, like you have to know the answers. We are writing things down. No, we are keeping science light and like just one, like science should be wonderful at this stage. Like, oh, look at the world that God has created. And another thing we're doing is we're also using a lot of these, like, so we have these books that are topic specific. So this one is talking about from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And then it will just teach the child all about like the stages of the development of a caterpillar to a butterfly. And then this is all about shells. And I like these because they're really well illustrated and it keeps science like fresh, very fresh and engaging. Um, very fresh and engaging. So you can begin to, because they are naturally curious. They want to know why this happens. Why is the sun shining? Why is it dark at night? So then the science comes in to actually answer some of those questions. And then we can also incorporate extracurricular activities. If you're homeschooling, it doesn't mean that you have to stay in your house. There are lots of like, even schools sometimes offer Saturday programs. There are like book clubs, there are dance classes, swimming lessons, all of these things that you can consider signing your child up for. And then you can also use this time to really go out and explore, like explore the world, go to the farm, go to the beach, go to the museum, just enjoy the time that you have together. And if your plan is to take your child into school after this stage, then one thing you also want to look at is understanding educational philosophies. I haven't touched on that at all yet, but once your child is moving into school, you want to at least do a little bit of research into that and figure out what's the underlying philosophy behind every school. Like every school has an underlying philosophy, and that will influence how the child is taught. So you want to at least know a bit about what the school's philosophy is, whether it aligns with your values as a Christian family or as a family. Okay. And then you can start making a decision. Are we going IB or are we doing Cambridge or are we choosing another route or are we even choosing to stay at home? Okay. So that's this age. And then the last thing I'll say to end it all is if homeschooling is going to work, is because you as the parent, you took the time to prepare to make it work. So that's another thing that you really want to focus on, especially in this age when at this stage when you start like bringing in curriculums, you actually need to sit down, have time to sit down, open the curriculum and see what's the next lesson. What are the things that we need for the lesson? Let me gather them together. What are the materials? Let me put them all together in a place that it will be easy to grab when we are doing the lesson. Because you don't want a situation where you don't have all your things and then you're going in and out during the short time that your child has to sit down. And then also at this stage, I think you want to start introducing some form of routine, or we should know that, okay, on Mondays, this is when it's homeschool time, this is what we do. On Tuesdays, this is what we do. So for example, we have um like a weekly checklist where on Mondays we know what we have, on Tuesdays we know the subjects we have. It helps to like it helps the child to know what's coming, and then they can also kind of like mentally prepare for it that, oh, we are going to do X and X and X, and then the session will be over. Okay. So preparation, and then you also want to look at your routines, your rhythms, your flows as a family, because like I'm saying, the next session we'll be talking about how like homeschool and managing the house sort of collide together and how to manage that. So most people will not have all of this like stuff in their house. You have to figure out how to manage it, how to blend doing your daily tasks with also trying to fit in a bit of school, especially when the child is growing and then you're trying to support their education. So that's it. Thank you so much for being with me today. The session is about to end, but that's okay. I have one more video, but I think I may just put that up on YouTube so that I can share it later. And if you have any questions, please squeeze it in now before it ends. Any questions, please? No questions?
No question. Thank you very much
All
for the
right.
session.
So thank you so much for joining me. I think next time I just have to budget more time for this thing because I keep thinking I can do it in 40 minutes and then it's become something else. But thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you being here. Please share your thoughts and feedback, questions, anything on the group page. And then I'll also put details on the materials and how you can get them on the page as well. So thank
All right.
you. I'm going to
Thank
end
you
it now.
also.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.